I'm ready. Good morning. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearings may watch on YouTube. My name is Bruce Mullock, and the panel members this morning are Yim Chan, Sahir Bayat, and Peter Reed. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. They have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry. When an item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. And we ask that you also mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist status when their item is being heard. As panelist, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5 minutes of allotted time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role should you fail to respect this instruction. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or to alter legally non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on a particular application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and an email address. Because the Committee of Adjustment and Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and specified persons in public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decisions of the committee. Procedure. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if requested by the committee. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. And I will comment to you as you are approaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised, in order to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes of the last hearing been confirmed by members?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. Yes, the January 25th, 2023 minutes are ready for adoption.
Thank you very much, and I'll look to panel members. Is someone ready to make a motion to adopt those? Mr. Reid, second. It is seconded, Ms. Chan. All in favor of adoption, please, show of hands. That's a unanimous vote. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do have two for this morning. Item number 769 Markham Street and item number 1091 Morningside Avenue.
Thank you. And are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, see none for this morning.
Thank you.
And we just have to confirm if there's any conflict of interest.
Okay, I'm addressing this remark to both panel and staff. Are there any declarations of interest by any members of panel or staff? Seeing none, we shall proceed to this morning's agenda. And the first application is 1220 Dufferin Street. And on this application, the panel has before it the following materials: those submitted by the applicant with the application, which include plans of survey, site plans, floor plans, and elevations. There is correspondence in opposition from Vanessa Higgins at 1 Lappin Avenue and Yasmin Lewis at 1 Lappin Avenue. So, moderator, is the applicant with us? Good morning.
Members of the committee, DeMarco, initials G. I really have nothing further to say with respect to the submitted application. I do have some comments with respect to opposition. The property
Just a moment, please. I just want to
Sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
just want to check with my panel members whether we'd like a presentation, and or whether they might have questions to put to you
Okay,
directly.
so-
So, panel members, would anyone like a presentation on this application? Yes, Ms. Chan would like a presentation.
Yeah, a brief one, yeah.
Brief presentation, and you can include, Mr. DeMarco, the comments you were about to make. Go ahead, please.
Yes, so the opposition is talking about parking. The property enjoys a garage at the back with 2 parking spaces. Objection was in height. The height of the property from the grade to the roof is 11.89. The height of the stair tower brings the height over the required height variance, that being the 14.33. Other than that, the property enjoys an entrance to the front. The application is to maintain or provide, I should say, for 4 residential units. So adding residential stock to the required rental accommodation. Other than that, the application is pretty well as it is submitted to the committee.
Thank you very much. Panel
Thank
members,
you.
questions? Ms. Chan?
Yes, I just have one small question. Your neighbor at 1222 is the other semi. Have you talked to them, or do you have the support from them?
100%. We have her support. She didn't bother putting anything on paper. What I'm being told is she eventually will apply for a similar application, but we have a very good rapport with her, and I did speak to her at one point a while back, and she has no objections.
Thank you very
And
much.
also, the front of the property, because you have a share, sort of a share porch, a porch cover, is that going to affect hers, or?
No, it's not. Whatever is being constructed, and for your information, we applied years ago for that front addition or porch, the reconstruction of that porch, but it will not affect her because we're not constructing anything in her property. She wishes that when we apply for that additional floor, that we put the center wall, if I may, in her so that she can proceed in the future. But again, our application is strictly up to our property line of what we're allowed.
So you said you have full support. Do you have a signed support from her, or it's just verbal
No, it's verbal, and I'm saying it to
support?
you. I've spoken to her in the past. She has no objections at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Applicant, I am concerned about the height. Effectively, you've got a structure that will be almost, from visually, it'll be a 5-story structure. And the fact that it is a semi, it's not in keeping with other structures in the neighborhood from what I can see. This is a little problematic.
If I may answer, the height, and I'll repeat it again, the height of the building component is 11.89 meters to the top of the roof. The height of the stair tower is what we're talking about, which is in the back. You're not going to see it from the front. And that goes to the top floor, which we have a small garden up for recreational purposes in conjunction with the units in the building. And again, that was um, produced to the neighbor. The affected neighbor would be the one next door, and she has no issues with it. Going to get to this roof. I mean, there's buildings in the whole area that are exceeding our height, and we're talking about our building and our building only right now. And that height, so-called affected height, is just strictly for that stair tower. That stair tower has no residential use, or it's strictly a means of egress to that top floor.
Okay, we understand. Tell me, if I'm standing on the sidewalk, looking up at the front of this house after construction, do I see that rooftop garden structure, or is it set back far enough that I basically can't see it from the street level?
It's actually set back, sir.
Okay.
We did that on purpose. We don't want to create any adverse impact to the area or to the neighbors. But it is a feature that should be limited landscaping on the first floor or ground grade area. And we took that incentive to provide that space for that use.
Okay. Are there any other questions, panel, of this applicant? I think then we're, Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to mention the fifth floor is also set back, or the fourth floor. I'm sorry. I think it's the fourth floor is also set back. Yeah, from the street. I think. Yeah.
Yes, good question. Thank you. That was comments made previous application, and that was something that the planners wanted to see, and we followed their requirements.
So when I'm standing on the street again and I look up to the fourth floor, give me a sense of what I'm seeing.
You may see some of that additional floor, but it will be, it's set back approximately 9 meters. Am I right?
How many? How much?
6 meters. 6 meters, sorry, 6 meters.
It's set back 6 meters.
Yes, sir.
No, 5.29.
5.29 to be exact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions, panel? Let's then take the application into committee for...
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I think we do have one speaker.
Do we have one speaker?
Yes.
Okay, because that speaker I couldn't tell about.
Okay.
Is that speaker standing by? And that speaker's in opposition, okay. Because that didn't show on my list. Okay, then we do have one speaker, panel, which I did not realize, standing by to speak. Let's hear what this... I know, it doesn't say opposition. So I thought this was the owner or something. Okay, let's have that speaker join us, please.
It's going to be number one, not the avenue sheet. It'll be a
Good morning.
Good morning, Harry Manoa. You have been unmuted.
Yeah, hi, this is Harry.
Good morning, Harry.
Can you hear me?
We do hear you clearly, Harry, and you have 5 minutes to address your comments to the committee.
Okay, so I don't have any opposition to what's happening. I'm just interested to follow with the process and to see what's happening here, and what the committee is suggesting or approving or not approving.
Okay.
So I don't have any specific questions.
I understand. Okay. All right, then. Thank you. The committee is about to do what we call take the application into committee. So we're going to discuss it openly now as to what our thoughts on it are. And so thank you for that, and we'll now take it into committee. Okay, panel members, any thoughts on this one? Ms. Chan, you go ahead, please.
I can start with some comments. Actually, I'm satisfied with the with the explanation. Actually, I noticed the detail of the design is the extra height is mainly created by the extra floor and also the rooftop walkout, but it is also designed such as stepping back each floor, the fourth floor, and then the roof garden is set back way far much further. So also given the situation, the location of this property is that you is away busy Main Street and also the subway. Well, I guess I do not know how long you take to walk there. Maybe less than 10 minutes or something. I think that it is a ideal place to moderate intensification and extra rental units. And I look at the units; they're good sized units, and I think I will support this application.
Thank you very much. Other thoughts, Mr. Byatt? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My main concern, I suppose, is the setting a precedent with regard to the height of the structure. We're looking at almost just under 2.5 meters in excess of what's allowed. But I think the other side of it, and I think this is something to keep in mind, because I'm sure if we approve the application as is with variance number 3 in particular, this may be cited in the future by others who may require similar variance. But I think the specific location of this structure, as Ms. Chance just indicated, it's a major thoroughfare and will be quite suited to greater intensification. So I think I'm reluctantly saying that I would support it, considering that where the home is located, not so much the fact that that it would be setting a precedent. I still have a concern about precedents.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Mr. Reed?
Sure, I agree with my colleagues. I think that this is the right spot for this kind of development, and Dufferin is in this area going through a lot of reurbanization, and there's a massive redevelopment just north. So I think it fits in. I think that it has been sensitively designed in terms of stepping back the top floor and then even further the rooftop deck. And there's no the depth variance for the house, or the length is a lot smaller than I would have thought. So I think it masses the bulk towards the center of the site. I think if we approve it, though, we should tie it to the roof plan as well as the elevations, just to mark the rooftop access.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking also. The reason why I also support it, because the next door neighbor seems to be supporting it too. I think it's the only property that will be affected by the more than any other properties. So in that case, so I move for approval, subject that it will tie to the roof plan and also the side elevations, both side elevations. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone to second that?
I will. Yim, could we also just add the front elevation as well, just to capture the width of the access?
And all the elevations then, yeah, because the back is showing the sort of the rooftop access and all that. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and it is seconded by Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. Vote is unanimous to carry the motion, and the application is so approved. Number 2 is 36 Roseveaar, and number 3 is 38 Roseveaar. These two applications are closely linked, so we'll just bear that in mind as we consider them. Let's have the applicant join us for number 2, please. Okay, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you. Panel members, well, I'm going to ask the applicant to address this briefly, and if you could also, I think the main question here is to what degree you and the neighbor at 38 are collaborating on the project. So tell us tell us about that, please.
So we are working with both clients together. The projects are happening concurrently, and they both have a great interest in upgrading the energy efficiency of their homes together to enhance the energy efficiency and the insulation. And so part of the lot coverage requirements is actually an additional 5 inches of insulation to the exterior of the existing house to meet the enhanced energy efficiency requirements.
Thank you. Panel, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry to blend these two together, but there's for 38, there's a second variance that's being requested, and it's not being requested for 36. Could you just address, could you explain why that is, please?
The two applications were reviewed by separate examiners, and it only came back with the first one for 38. And so I'm not sure why it wasn't addressed for 36. But there are plenty of existing semi-detached dwellings on that street. And because we are only proposing renovations to the existing structure and not a new structure, we believe it's an appropriate variance to be requesting.
Okay. At this point, I think it's appropriate if we do hear from the agent for number or this. Are you agent? You're agent for both? Are you?
That's correct. I'm agent for both.
Okay, then. So, all right. Does the owner of number 38 have anything that they wish to say?
I believe that the owner is not a registered speaker. I'm speaking on their behalf.
Okay, very, very good then. Okay. All right then, Paul. All right then, panel members, any further questions? I think we'll vote on these separately, but we'll vote on them, first the 36 and then 38. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd just like to say it's nice to have a situation where neighbors are collaborating as they are able to improve both structures simultaneously. So I think it's quite commendable. We only have one variance in front of us for 36. I do not see any issue with it, so I'd like to move motion to approve. No conditions attached.
Motion to, and that's second to Mr. Reed. So there's a motion to approve application number 236, Rosevear, and it's seconded by Mr. Reed. Those in favor, please, show of hands. That motion is carried. The application is approved. Moving right along to application number 3, 38 Rosevear. Anyone with a motion? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly to the previous application, I don't see any issues with this particular application. I'd like to approve again with no conditions attached.
Thank you. That is seconded also by Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve application number 3, 38 Rosevear. Those in favor, please, show of hands. Vote is unanimous to carry the motion. The application is approved. Thank you, panel. Number 4, 66 Spadina Road. On this application, panel has before it materials submitted by the applicant. There's a cover letter from the agent, October, and there is an order to comply, which affects the property. Okay, good day. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. I'm Andrew Dales.
Good morning to you.
Agent for the owner.
Okay, I just want to make a comment at this stage with respect to this application for those viewing the hearing. This is an application to legalize construction that has already taken place without the benefit of a permit. And I want to just mention to those watching that the Committee of Adjustment in no way endorses construction without permits. The permitting procedure is fundamental to orderly development. But sometimes we are asked to consider applications where this has taken place, construction without a permit, and I want to just detail how we approach these applications. And we approach them in the same way we would any other application. In other words, we apply the 4 tests that we use on every application, and we, for the purpose of our consideration, ignore the fact that construction has taken place. We view it as if it was still on paper. And we ask ourselves, is this desirable? And in line with the Planning Act and the bylaw, is it minor? And the same questions exactly. So that's how we approach it. Very good. Panel members, any questions here or any request for presentation on this application? Ms. Chan, go ahead.
I do have a small question about the garden suites. Are these rental units too? Also, are they residential?
Yes, it's 2 detached rental dwelling units on the same property as an existing 75-unit, 11-story rental apartment building. They're currently vacant. You know, the current owner, which is not the owner that undertook these conversions without minor variances and building permits, you know, has left them vacant until they satisfy the order to comply and they get the appropriate minor variances and building permits.
Okay, the other question is, I noticed from one of the photographs that it seems that is the unit that closest to the street is unit B, or anyway, just in front of it, I noticed that the garbage storage right in front of that little building. Is that where you store your garbage, right next to a residential unit?
So that garbage storage area has existed there for you know, for as long as I understand the owner has owned that property. And you know, I'm not sure whether or not there's really sufficient room elsewhere, but I understand that there is some separation between the garbage units, the garbage bins, and that dwelling unit there. You know, these buildings were originally constructed as garages, and it's a quite a tight condition in there. You know, it may be possible to look at alternatives for the storage of the garbage units, but my understanding currently is that there are no, you know, significant impacts on that building in terms of where the totes are being stored.
And the reason why I raised the question is that a lot of new multi-unit developments or even some residential require to have the garbage area enclosed or at least covered. So what is there a legal garbage storage area or not? It's not showing on your plan, but I only noticed on the Google Maps or photographs. That is where you use it for garbage storage. And is that a legal spot for the garbage storage?
It's my understanding that they are legal. You know, this is not a new development. This apartment building and these 2 detached buildings have existed in that location for many decades. And, you know, we've consulted extensively with community planning staff on this application, and there were no concerns raised in terms of where the garbage bins are being currently stored and for pickup by the city.
Okay, my question for you, applicant, is this the order to comply dates back to 2019? Could you inform the panel?
Well, it actually originally my understanding was the order to comply was originally issued in 2013.
Okay. All right, then my question would apply to that part as well. Then, can you tell us what has been happening since 2013 then with respect to the property and the concern by the city?
So I can only speak to what's occurred on the property since my client purchased the property with these 2 buildings already converted. So we've been working, pretty closely again with planning staff on this application, as well as the building inspector to legalize these 2 units, and that's precisely what we're doing. There was, my understanding is that these 2 units again have been vacant since my client purchased the property. They did certainly didn't want to go further offside, and their intent from the outset was to legalize these 2 units since their purchase of the property.
Okay, so there's a question then. Were they vacant and uninhabitable, or were they simply habitable and sitting vacant by choice?
The latter.
Okay. So has the applicant that you're dealing with, the current owner, done anything to enhance their habitability since 2019?
So as part of this process to legalize the units, there's been a couple of things. Number one, community planning staff, reviewed the application and asked for certain landscape upgrades, which we are providing, as shown on the drawings. Secondly, when the property was purchased, we together retained a building code consultant to have a look at the buildings and let us know what kind of upgrades are required to have building permits issued for these 2 buildings. The building code compliance report concluded that there are some very minor upgrades that need to be undertaken in order to legalize them from a building code perspective, and that also has been reviewed by planning staff, and they're comfortable that these minor adjustments to the building are feasible. And again, there's no construction outside of these existing building envelopes.
Okay,
My
thank you.
understanding is the code issues are related to kind of window opening sizes.
Okay, I get it. And just along this same line, you're able to look at a building and have some idea about its age. You mentioned many decades. How old do you think these buildings are? How this is an existing condition that dates back how long?
My guess is 1960s.
Okay. All right. And panel members, any other questions? Mr. Byatt.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of familiar with this area just north of Bloor in the annex neighborhood. And it's one of those situations where when one looks at the application itself with all the variances, it kind of triggers a situation of, can we really approve something that was produced illegally and now legalized? But I think this is a particularly unusual site, as we've often come across unusual situations. The apartment building has been on Spadina for as long as I can remember. That goes back about 50 years or thereabouts. I imagine the 2 structures behind it have been there as long, if not longer. So I don't have any discomfort with this particular application. And I also note that none of the city authorities or bodies have raised any flags, planning in particular, with regard to the 2 structures. I imagine in order to make these habitable, the current owners will do everything in there to make them both habitable but also attractive sufficiently for people to want to rent them. So I really don't have any issues with this particular very site-specific application.
Right. I'd like to just add, these are really great rental dwelling units directly across the street from the Kendall entrance to the Spadina subway station. These will be highly desirable units in a fantastic neighborhood. Again, these buildings have been there for a long time, and there's going to be really no incremental impacts on any surrounding properties.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel members, any final questions before we go into committee? Not having any. Let's go into committee on this application then. Ms. Chan, are there any comments, or if you're ready for a motion, go ahead.
Yeah, I can start with a comment. I agree with my colleague about the condition of or the circumstance. Because I know this building very well too. I used, my music teacher used to live there. And uh, but on the other hand, I have just a comment on this, is that I don't think it's a very good use of this, of the open space. The little building's been there for a long time. That is not a good reason for the use of the open areas. That if it were there, people will use it, the tenants, and just occupy such a big area at the back for two little units, and they still have to upgrade. I don't think it's a very good use of the space. But having said that, I think if they're going to develop, they should maybe add more units to those little two buildings. And it's more worth it because the open space is lost anyway. So I wish that they're planning to have maybe 4 units there rather than just 2. But anyway, that's my comment. Having said that, I think I can still support it based on the reason my colleague given, and it's not going to give any more negative impact to the neighborhood. Yeah.
Anyone ready with the motion? Mr.
Mr. Peter, want to say something?
No, Mr. Byatt, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. With all that has been said, I think I'm quite comfortable moving ahead to move a motion to approve. I don't believe there are any particular conditions attached from any particular body, so it would be motion to approve without condition.
Thank you. That is seconded, Ms. Chan. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please, show of hands. Those opposed? Okay. Ms. Chan? Ms. Chan? Your vote on this application is what?
I second it, and I voted for it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry. I think it was just your hand was a bit beneath the camera, perhaps. Very good. Okay, so the vote is unanimous. The motion is carried. The application is so approved. Thank you. And that takes us to application number 5, 160 Forest Hill Road. On this application, panel has before it submitted materials. There's an arborist report, tree protection plan, November, and presentation materials from the agent, February. And there is a commenting report from Urban Forestry, received 1 February. So let's have the agent join us, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I hope I'm coming through okay. It's David Bronskill, 333 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Suite 3400, here as the agent for the applicant.
You are coming through clearly. Let me just check with the moderator. Do we have one speaker standing by? Yes, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bronskill, you have 5 minutes to present your application. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a presentation before you. I can quickly outline that there are the variances that might seem most contentious, FSI and length, but as usual with these presentations that we put together for you, we do have some maps, pages 4 and 5 of the presentation that just show the range of numbers in the area for both FSIs and length. You'll see that what we are proposing from a numerical perspective fits at 80.03 for the FSI, fits well within the range, and what's proposed in terms of length and depth at 25.07, length at 25.96, also fits well within the range of length and depth variances that have been approved in the neighborhood, some exceeding 30 and even 40 meters. As you know, with length and depth, it's always a bit, I'm going to say a bit dangerous to rely only on the numbers, because we know that they include length and depth either to one-story structures or below-grade structures, and so that's why we have also on the next page in the presentation, page 6, included what we hope is a helpful diagram that shows the outline of where the 1-story starts and where the line of the second floor is, just so that the committee can see that the length of the dwelling for the second floor to the back of those bump outs is actually 17.91 meters. The length of 25.04 extends to the 1-story section out the back. And so we wanted to make it clear for the committee that you can see the 17.91 is a fairly typical length, a little bit longer than the zoning bylaw permission, I acknowledge. But then the 1-story provision coming out the top is what, out the back, sorry, is what triggers the longer length variance. Although, as I noted earlier, numerically, it's certainly well within the range of what's been approved. There have been some very good negotiations and discussions, including a meeting on site with the neighbor that would be adjacent to that 1-story section. My thanks to their counsel, who was sent over actually an agreement this morning that my client is signing right now. It deals with some matters, I would say, I'm not going to say they're not planning matters, but they're not matters related to the variances or conditions. But they do ensure some things important to those neighbors. Access to a side door, preservation of some landscaping, assurances about construction, some matters related to the walkway being maintained or repaired. All valid matters for consideration as part of a project like this, not matters necessarily related to the variances or conditions, but we are thankful for their involvement and willingness to engage. And as I said, my client is in fact signing an agreement with them as I speak right now to address their concerns. And I think on the basis of that, that neighbor is not objecting. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm not sure who's lined up to speak after me, but overall, we think these variances are in keeping with what's been approved in the neighborhood and will result in a high-quality addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you. There is a question for you, Ms. Chan.
Yeah, I have a quick one. Do you say your neighbor or your neighbors?
The neighbor at 158.
158. Well, I actually more concerned of 162 because of the position of your house to theirs, because they're on the north side. So, have you talked to them too?
I don't have direct knowledge. My understanding is that they have no concerns and are not objecting. The site plan, I think the reason the focus was recently with 158 is that's where the 1-story section comes out and has the bump out next to them. The other neighbor, who would be to the north at 162, if I could ask staff's indulgence, page 2 of our presentation, the 2-story component, largely, if you can see there, Ms. Chan, through you, Mr. Chair, the red line shows the permitted zoning envelope. You can see those 2 bump outs, which were part of that second floor bump out that I would have shown you on the previous page. So the second floor portion largely actually meets the zoning envelope in terms of the relationship to the neighbor at 162. And then the 1-story portion comes out slightly, and then you can see the 1-story section, and then what is otherwise the deck or patio adjacent to the neighbor to the north. So in terms of massing, shadows, etc., what's happening to the north, largely in terms of the 2- and 3-story portions, are within the existing permitted building envelope. So we think that relationship would meet the intent of the bylaw. And the focus, because the 1-story section comes out and is adjacent to 158, there's been some particular focus, as I said, on matters related to landscaping, access, pathways, etc., because that is where there is some additional length.
Thank you. Mr. Bike, go ahead.
Just in the same vein, it looks like the third floor on the side adjacent to 162 is also set back in part. So presumably that also alleviates any concerns for 168. Would I be correct?
And through you, Mr. Chair, that is part of the intention of the design, is that 3rd-story piece sort of sits up within the roof line. There are some setbacks in fact, on all the sides to make sure that it steps away from the exterior walls.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And Agent, I understand that from the tree report that some damage to trees is anticipated. I wanted to ask you if that anticipated tree injury is a result of the request for length that you're applying for.
If you see what's on the screen, there is a tree within the one-story portion, but they are also flagging that there's a driveway, and we're having to work through the driveway in that location, and there is a partial portion of that driveway coming within the tree protection zone, so there will be an injury there, and what urban forestry therefore flagged for us there is through that process, minimizing impact on that tree to ensure that that tree could remain. It's a city-owned honey locust, as you see there, about 23 centimeters in diameter. You can see the driveway is in that location today, and so it's the right location to keep the driveway as part of this. But we will have to manage impacts on that honey locust through the process with urban forestry.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks,
Any
sir.
other questions, panel? Okay, we do have a speaker standing by. Let's go to that speaker now and hear from that speaker who's standing by.
Desi Alciello, you have been unmuted.
Oh, hi. Yes, my name's Desi Ochoa. I'm the owner of 153 Dunvegan Road, immediately behind the subject premises. The only question I have with respect to the application does relate to the arborist report and the suggestion, I think, in the report that tree number 3 would be removed. I do not have confirmation as to whether or not the city forestry department has agreed to remove that tree. I would be absolutely in support of the removal of that tree. It has been a great deal of it's caused a great deal of damage to our property over the years. So I just wanted confirmation, and I haven't seen that in the material.
Okay, let's your question is being put to the agent. Let's see if he can clarify that for us. Is that all, Mr. Ochiello, that you have that you wanted to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go back to the agent then to clarify that question.
Thank you, and Mr. Chair, my thanks to staff. They have essentially answered the question for me with their diligence, and I appreciate it. You can see on the screen there, tree number 3, and I think we're talking about the same tree number 3, is a Norway maple. A permit is required for its removal, but you can see that there are unhealed wounds, trunk cavities, peeling bark, and it's proposed to be removed due to its condition.
Thank you. Okay, then. There are no further speakers. Panel members, let's take this application into committee then. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
I have a quick question to the applicant, actually. Because the urban forestry has issued some advisory comments, I just wonder whether if we adopt those comments, whether it's irrelevant or you still or not, or you still have to apply for what do you call the urban forestry approval for the project?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I didn't see the typical sort of urban forestry checklist, and I may have just missed it. I'm not sure if there's anything in your materials, and by that checklist, I mean when they recommend a condition of approval. The memo we had didn't express any opposition, but it was a bit unclear to me as to whether they were recommending conditions or not. We will have to.
That's the question too.
Yeah.
I think you have the same memo. Yeah.
We will have to go through. Sorry to interrupt you. We will have to go through that process because there are trees proposed for removal, and there will be an injury even if the honey locust at the front is retained. I'd have no objection to a condition that would require sign off on urban forestry and the permit through the permit process because we know that we're going to have to do that anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Byatt.
Thank you, Chair. I think the applicant has provided a very good presentation as well as explanations to a variety of questions. I personally don't have any issues with this particular application, and I also note that forestry hasn't provided any conditions or requested any conditions. And as Ms. Chan has indicated, they do have an advisory. And I suspect that the applicant will take that into account, and an application will certainly have to be applied for to injure trees or remove any trees. Having said that, I don't have any issues with regard to the application itself. I'm quite happy to move a motion to approve.
Please do. Okay. So
in which case, I would like to move a motion to approve. There are no conditions attached as far as I can see.
Should it be subject to forestry? Just generally speaking?
I don't know. We can always say subject to forestry, an application or forestry memo. But I don't believe it's a condition because the forestry hasn't actually indicated as a condition. The first paragraph says urban forestry staff reviewed the application, does not object to the approval of the proposed consent / variances.
Well,
so they don't actually have a condition advisory.
Yes, I agree. That's why I asked, but if they were going to remove or injure any tree, they will have to apply for permit anyway.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Approval. So I do not think we should, it's actually useless to adopt just an advisory comment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would second that motion.
Thanks. Could I just make a friendly amendment, maybe that we tie this to site plan and the side elevations just to capture the rear condition with the 1-story step down and only partial extension of that 1-story portion.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the motion's been amended. Does that amended motion have a second? It is seconded, Ms. Chan. So moved and seconded to approve the amended motion. Those in favor, please, show of hands. And that motion is carried. The application is so approved. Thank you. Panel moves on to number 6. (42) DuPont Street. Before us, we have the submitted application materials. There is a commenting report from Urban Forestry, February 1st, and there is support correspondence in the form of 6 form letters from addresses on DuPont Street, 32, 36, 40, 44, 46, and 58. So let's have the applicant join us, please.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Keulen of Hughes Design Studio. I am the applicant on the file. Good
morning to you. Okay, we'll see if the panel would like a presentation or has any questions for you. I just have one question, and that is with respect to the front yard setback. Can you tell me what the existing front yard setback is, please?
There are a number of enclosed porches along the street. So technically, by the zoning bylaw standards, we have to measure the existing front yard setback all the way back to the main structure of the house. And then when we enclose a porch such as this, we have to measure it to the enclosure. So we are enclosing an existing front porch, so the massing really is not too affected at all.
I'm sorry, I just missed the first little bit of your answer, and I thank you for the answer. But did you tell us what the existing front yard setback is now?
Oh, so the existing front yard setback is around 15.93 feet, and I could convert that over to meters. If you give me a second. So that's 4.85 meters
Okay, so
approximately.
it's currently at the required setback, but it's going to be an enclosed porch after this. Okay, thank you very much.
Correct. You're
Okay.
welcome.
If there are no other questions, panel, anyone? Mr. Bike, go ahead.
Just a couple of quick ones. Variance number 2, is that an existing condition? And the second question would be with the 2 parking pads in the rear, would that be the materials used for the parking pads, would that be permeable?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So we're dealing with the 2 variances related only to the front yard features. So the front yard existing landscaping is being maintained. So it is, in a sense, legalizing an existing condition. The way that the stairs are now and everything that is in the front yard sort of remains as is. It's just we have to bring that up to code.
Thank you.
And then if you wish, Mr. Chair, I could address the second part of the question, which is the parking pads. The parking pads could be very easily made of permeable, but we're not seeking any variances in relation to anything to do with the rear yard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Not hearing any. Okay. Then let's take the applicant. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think this is a very straightforward application, and the variance they are seeking is due to the existing condition. And I think that if I were going to put a motion for approval, I'd like to tie them to the floor plans, because they will only just indicating the extra front porch enclosure, limit to the first, to 1 floor only. And also have to tie to forestry condition number 2. Yeah.
And would you like to stipulate permeable pavers?
Oh yes, the new rear parking pads to be paved with permeable material. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Does that motion have a second? It is seconded. Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Motion carried, unanimous vote. The application is approved. Thank you. Number 7 is 69 Markham Street. Now, on this application, there is a request to defer. So let's have the applicant join us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
Sean Galbraith, planner here on behalf of the application.
Very, very good. Perhaps you could explain for the committee your request to defer the application.
Sure. We've had some really great discussions with the neighbors of the apartment building next door and with city staff. We're going to be making some changes to shift the building a bit forward on the property to reduce the impacts to the windows on the apartment building to the north. And that's likely going to trigger at least another variance. And so we would have a notice issue. And so we're requesting a deferral so we can clean all that up and make sure everybody's on board.
Okay, then. Now, just let me check with the moderator. Moderator, how many speakers do we have standing by to speak? 4. Okay, so just to clarify the procedure in a situation like this, the committee will make the decision as to whether or not to defer the application. We'd like to be informed, though, in making that decision, so I'm going to briefly speak with each of the individuals who are registered in advance and have been standing by patiently to speak on this application, just to see what their thoughts are on the question of deferral. So let's have the first person unmuted, please.
Will you hear me?
Matthew Helfendi.
Yeah. Hello, Miss. Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Oh, that's Matthew. Could you state
Yes.
your name, please?
Hi there. I was testing my mic first. My name is Matthew Helfand.
Okay, Matthew. Okay.
Hi there, and I'm counsel for Mr. Shane Neal and Mr. Todd Veltuzen, who are residents of the apartment building to the north. I can confirm that there have been discussions taking place with the applicant, and we are in support of the deferral request and are hopeful that a resolution can be reached by the time this matter comes back before committee.
Thank you very much for that. That's precisely what I wanted to ask you. So appreciate it. Let's move along now to the next speaker standing by. Okay. Kyle Wong? Okay, that's fine. So the people that aren't on the line, we don't need to try to get them on the line. The ones that are on the line, I want to judge their thoughts about deferral. So just who's the next speaker who is standing by? Okay, Mr. Quant. Mr. Quant, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Mr. Quant, I have a simple question for you. Not with respect to anything about the application itself. I know you have concerns by the fact that you registered to speak in opposition. But would you be in favor of or opposed to having the application deferred so that some of the things which the applicant was talking about could take place?
Well, I greatly suspect that all of the issues that we have outlined in our various letters of opposition are unlikely to be addressed in anything other than a very severely modified new application. But at the same time, we are open, of course, to negotiation. We only wish that there had been consultation with the many residents in this building before the plans were drawn up. A lot of the opposition, a lot of the grief that we're facing might have been mitigated by a simple process of consultation instead of this coming so late, just being presented with this immense building being built next to us that's going to have so many deleterious effects on the residents on the south side of this building. But we are for deferral. If just to be able to keep the negotiations open for changes that might benefit. But I really do suspect that given all of the many measures of opposition that we have, that it's going to be a difficult process.
Thank you very much. That's what I needed to know, and that helps. So thank you. Mr. Moderator, next speaker standing by. Do we have Benjamin? Good morning, Benjamin.
I'm a resident, 75 Markham Street, the neighbor to the...
Benjamin?
Can you hear me?
We barely hear you. You're very, very, very muted. So if you
Can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Much better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Right. I agree to the deferral. I support the deferral.
Very good. That's what I wanted to ask you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going back now to the panel. So panel, you've heard comments from the speakers standing by. You've heard reasoning from the applicant. It's in your hands now. Anyone with a motion, Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, given the, I think it's good reason. I think they willing to work more, do more vision. So for that reason, I move for deferral of the case. Yeah.
That is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to defer. Those in favor, please, show of hands. And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion and defer the application. Thank you. Number 8 is 711 Indian Road. On this application before the panel are those materials submitted with the application, plus a photograph of trees on the property from October. Let's have the agent join us, please, for number 8.
Hi, this is Ozran Stambuk.
Good morning to you. Very good. Now I'm going to check with panel members. Questions, panel, for this speaker? Not hearing any. Okay, then. Mr. Stanbook, is there any one thing we should know about your application?
No, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right then, panel. Anyone ready with a motion? Mr. Reid, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a very reasonable application. It's a minor addition, and the variances themselves are small, and I can see no negative impact coming from them. So I move approval with no conditions.
That is seconded by Ms. Chan. Moved and seconded approval. Those in favor, show hands, please. Motion carried, and the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9 is 311 Durie. On this application we have before us submitted materials with the application and a chart of comparable approvals from the agent February the 1st. Let's have the agent join us.
Hello.
Good morning. State your name,
Hi.
please.
Hi, it's Nilufar Sultani from KH Davis Engineering. I'm the agent for the owners of 311 Durie Street.
Very good, thank you. Panel members, questions here for the speaker. Mr. Byatt?
Just a quick one. Just looking at the east elevation, it looks like there's a balcony. Is it a Juliet balcony or is it protruding? Is it a full balcony?
Sorry, if you can bring up the elevation.
Actually, I'm also looking at, let's see, A202.
So the rear?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new balcony, but I want to clarify whatever is at the rear is permitted. So whatever you see in the dash line is permitted. And there's actually a typo in the description of the proposal saying that the rear addition will be rebuilt. That's all already permitted. And I was very specific in my application to make sure they don't make that mistake, but they did. So the proposal is for the front enclosed porch to be part of the gross floor area and the front second and third floor addition only, nothing at the rear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further
Hopefully
questions?
that wouldn't cause any troubles.
Further questions, panel? Ms. Chan?
Yeah, I just wonder whether you will propose or you put a privacy screen on the fifth floor new balcony. Is it on the east side? Yes, that was yeah.
Again, this is already permitted. I don't believe there is a privacy screen, but it's in the works and it's been permitted, so it's not part of the scope of this application.
Oh, the privacy screen is usually not as a code issue. It's just to give the neighbors some privacy, and both of you and the neighbors some privacy. I just thought maybe that's quite a big deck, but I thought maybe you can put some privacy screen there. It's on the east side, I think. But anyway,
it's just not part of the scope, so I can't really comment on that. I'm sorry, it's already permitted. Yeah.
I think the question is whether you would.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's including in your drawings. That's why it's a big.
Yeah, I noted it there though. Yeah.
It indicates as a new balcony, so I suppose that adds confusion to it.
Yes, I think that's why. Yeah.
Okay then. If there are no further questions, let's move into committee for a motion, unless someone has a comment. Mr. Byatt, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've got the response to my question. Unfortunately, it's not quite what I would have liked, but that's regardless. I think the application is quite straightforward. I don't believe there are any real issues with this particular one. There is a forestry number 2 condition attached to it. So I'd like to perhaps move a motion to approve with forestry condition number 2.
Are you sure about that, Mr. Byatt? There is forestry?
Unless I'm mistaken, I seem to have jotted that down at some point. Maybe I'm mistaken.
2, yeah. Condition 2, yeah. I have the same note.
Yes, you're right. It is number 2, forestry 2.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Byatt.
So I second that, yeah.
It is seconded. Okay. Moved to approve. Moved and seconded. Subject to forestry. Those in favor, please. Show of hands. Vote unanimous. Motion carried. Application approved. Number 10 also comes with a request to defer. So let's go to the speaker.
I'm the agent for the application.
Could you state your name, please?
Jay Smith.
Very good. Good morning. Okay, if you would please describe to the panel your reasoning and your wish to defer the application.
We have had discussions with both immediate neighbors. The concerns of the neighbors are such that it's going to take time to do some redesign. It will also mean that we'll need to go back for an updated zoning review because some of the variances will change once we, alter the design to keep everyone happy with the development.
So the intent is to listen to some of the concerns you've heard expressed and take steps toward modifying in that direction. Okay.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. It's just there isn't enough time to make the changes required. They're a little more significant than a quick change for today's hearing.
Very good. Okay, now, so I'm going to go to the speakers that are standing by. And speakers, I'm just going to ask you the simple question, not your concerns about the application, but just with respect to this matter before us now, deferral. Would you be in favor of allowing the application to be deferred? Let's go to the first person standing by.
Hi, I'm James Schaus. I'm the owner of 89 Morningside, the east adjacent property to 91 Morningside. I agree with the deferral. I have had discussions with the agent, the owner, and the architect. I reached out proactively upon the suggestion of your application technicians, including Jordan Chow, who were very helpful in this process.
Okay.
So I agree with the deferral.
Thank
And
you.
as long as I get enough time to review any new submissions to the file and respond to them before the next hearing date.
Very good. Thank you for your comment. Is there someone else, Mr. Moderator, standing by?
Yu Wen Yi, you have been unmuted.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Committee of Adjustment. I'm the neighbor of 91. My address is 93 Morningside Avenue.
Okay, my question for you is, would you be in favor of allowing this application to be deferred, or would you rather that it proceed this morning?
Yes. So, since the agent is here, Mr. J. Smith, I would request for maybe you can speak with us for your plan, because we haven't been contacted for any plan. So we actually don't know anything from the agent and the owner. So right now, just if you can contact us and let me know your modified plan to
okay.
So
thank
decrease
you. Yeah, you'd like to see, you'd be in favor
Yes.
of a deferral.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay,
Yes,
Mr. Singh.
Swansea Area Ratepayers Association. My name's Nick Singh. We would support the consultation provided we are included in that consultation. I didn't hear the agent mention the association when he was considering the consultation. So on condition we were included, we would support that, yes.
Okay, just so you know, that the The committee itself will make the decision with respect to deferral, but we do want to get a sense from the various parties concerned.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, sir.
Okay. The panel, the Committee of Adjustment, will actually make the decision about deferral. So we're going to decide whether to defer or not, but we did want to gauge the opinion of those who had registered to speak. So thank you very much. We're going to go back now to the panel. So panel, you've heard the thoughts. Anyone ready with the motion? Mr. Reid, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I support the request for a deferral. I think the application itself is in a very good state right now, and so I think that if the applicant is willing to make changes to further refine it, then that's great. So I move approval of the request for deferral.
Thank you. Seconded, Mr. Byatt. Those in favor, please show hands. Unanimous vote carries the motion. The application is deferred. Number 11, 301 St. Clarens Avenue. On this application, before us are the submitted materials plus 2 photographs of the property. We'll ask the agent to join us, please.
My name's Tony Henriquez. I'm the agent, 543 Concord Avenue, Toronto, Ontario.
Good day to you. Okay. And let me just check with moderator. Moderator, do we have registered speakers? We do. Okay. So, Tony, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Yes, basically, we're proposing a 3-story addition. We do have a few variances here. We're not going as high as the existing house, so we're below the height of the existing house. The reason for this application is the owner's son was in a car accident, a pedestrian that got run over, and he's in a wheelchair. And currently he's right now trying to learn how to speak, so he does need some extra space to try to recover. And this was the best option for him to create this additional space. That's the whole reason why we're actually creating it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, panel. Any questions at this stage, or do we want to hear from the registered speakers?
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Ms. Chan.
Okay, I'd like to know what is the existing FSI?
I can tell you just in 1 second here. It's approximately 2,348, approximately.
What's that in percentage or what?
The existing FSI.
Yeah, the existing FSI in terms of the times of the lot. Yeah, FSI.
Percentage, that would be. 0.73.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to speaker standing by, moderator.
Allison.
Good morning. This is Allison Lowy at 178 Margaretta Street.
Good morning.
I'm the neighbor back alley.
Go ahead with your comments, please.
Yes, I just wanted to, well, first of all, very sensitive to the situation, the unique situation of the homeowner, certainly. In this case, though, I do have some concerns just regards to the variances they're seeking. They seem quite large in terms of the floor space, nearly double, and it looks, from what I can tell, to be a full 3-story height. And I'm just concerned primarily about the precedent that sets for the neighborhood, and then also like the shade significance. And I'm also noting that there's no setbacks on the second and third floor additions. So, in terms of the view and what I see from my property, how my privacy and sunlight is affected, I just wanted to voice those concerns.
Well, can you tell us the impact that you are concerned about? How is it going to impact your enjoyment of your property?
Well, I did request if there'd been any shade impact studies performed. I didn't get a response, so I don't know. But if so, I'd be interested to see if there is any impact. And then certainly more so with the precedent of should other houses do it and what that does to, the overall shade and sun. And then I've just, been sitting here listening to a lot of the hearings. So everyone's talking about setbacks on upper levels. I'm wondering why that's not here when they're seeking such large increases to the current zoning. To go from 177 meters to 312 square meters is not a small jump, nor is 8 foot increase to the height.
Okay. Panel members, questions for this speaker? Anything? No. Okay. Okay, then let's carry on to the next speaker who is waiting to speak. Okay. Okay, we had another registered speaker, but couldn't reach them. Okay. All right then, fine. Let's go back then to the applicant, who will have a chance to speak in rebuttal to the concerns expressed by Allison. Speaker?
Yes.
Applicant?
Yes. Basically, our addition is 3 stories, but we are 62 feet from the back of the property, and then there's another laneway, and then there's another backyard. So our shadow would never even reach the laneway, never mind the rear property. So we are quite distant. In terms of the floor space index here on this street, there are plenty of 3 stories, and what we're asking is not any more that has been asked before on the street. So it's not, I don't think it's a concern. Planning didn't have any issues with the floor space index either. So I think this falls into what has been approved on this street.
Thank you very much. Okay. Panel members, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Byatt, continue.
Thank you. Just one a question with regard to variance number 2, the soft landscaping reduction that you're asking for. Is that as a consequence of the rear addition that's intended to be built? And the second question is, you've got balconies on, I believe it's the second and third floors. Is there any privacy screening attached to those balconies?
Yes, basically the floor, the landscape, it's pretty well existing. Right now where we're proposing the addition, there is a patio there, so it is already concrete. So there's not going to be too much change within the soft landscape. In terms of the balcony, we will provide 2-meter high screening on either side.
Thank you.
Is anyone ready with a motion? Mr. Reid, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I just lost my cursor for a minute. I think that this is a reasonable application, and I understand the motivation for the addition to the house, and I think it's been put in the right spot. There is some variation in terms of the depth that's being proposed, and in terms of the side yard stepping back. I think it breaks up the massing of what's happening in this this addition. I think the variances are minor, and I think that the length and height that is being requested fits in with the general pattern of houses on this street. So I move approval of the application with the condition that the second and third floor balconies be screened on the Well, I guess it would just be on the south side because the building extends out further on the north. So on the south side of the second and third story balconies.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Ms. Chan? Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please, show of hands. That vote is unanimous. It carries the motion. The application is approved. Number 12, 291 Lisgar Street. Materials before us are those submitted with the application and one photograph of the property, October. And we shall ask the agent to join us, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Bruno Walsh from MXL Engineering, 1649 St. Clair Avenue West, and I'm here on behalf of the owner.
Good morning. Do we have any questions, panel? No, not hearing any. Okay. Is anyone ready with a motion with respect to Mr. Byatt? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is extremely minor in terms of its impact. The variance request is extremely minor. I don't see any reason not to approve as is. No conditions attached.
Thank you very much. That is seconded, Ms. Chan. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Application, or the motion is carried. Application is approved. Thank you. Number 13 is 80 FERMANAGH Avenue. On 80 FERMANAGH, we have submitted materials, 8 photographs of trees, and 4 form letters in support, signed by occupants of 82, 77, 73, and 79 FERMANAGH. Let's go to the applicant.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ellen Lynch. I'm the applicant for the agent for the applicants, excuse me. I'm with Lynch and Comiso Architects, 570 Annette Street.
Good morning to you. Questions, panel, for the applicant, agent? Not hearing any. Is anyone ready with a motion? Ms. Chan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I've studied all the plans and all, and they're not extending to further from the 2 next door neighbors. And they also have the support of number 82. And I do not think this proposal is unreasonable, and I do not think it will create too much negative impact. So I would like to move for approval with no conditions.
Thank you. And that is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Yes. That unanimous vote carries the motion.
Thank you.
And that application is approved. Number 14 is 185 Gowan. And on 185 Gowan, we have submitted materials, photographs of trees, 1 photograph of the subject property, map of neighboring properties. There is an order to comply. In support, we have 20 form letters by owners or occupants of Gowan Avenue, Floyd Avenue, Lankin Boulevard, Norbury Crescent, O'Connor Drive, Pape Ave. In opposition, we have correspondence from 199 Gowan, Ann Edwards. Let's have the applicant join us.
Yes, good morning. My name is Leo Mastandre. I'm the agent for the owners at 185 Gowan.
Good morning to you. Panel members, presentation, questions?
Just a quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Applicant, as I understand it correctly, this is just an open-sided gazebo, just a solid roof, but open-sided?
Yes, we submitted a photo of it, I believe, in the supporting material.
I believe I did see something, yes.
Should be under supporting material.
Just give us a second. We'll get to the photograph.
Yes.
Yeah, it's under there. It is open all the way around. That's it there.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Chan.
Yes?
Yes, from your elevation, it shows that your eaves or whatever the fascia is right at the property line, so it's still setback, but I do not see any gutter. So wouldn't the water run off to your neighbor's property?
Yes, but we do have approval from that direct neighbor. The eave is touching the property line, but our building is actually set back 0.55 meters. But again, we do have approval at adjacent neighbor on that side.
I understand, but maybe he doesn't. What I mean is that you still have to look after the water that will not run into your neighbor's
Yes, we're going to probably
right?
put an eave trough. We're going to speak to the
Yes.
neighbor and see how to handle that.
I think it's a good idea because it's actually a good idea for the outside since you have a cottage roof, right?
Photograph, please.
Yes.
Okay. I think you should do that. Thank you.
Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. To the applicant, I noticed in the landscape plan, you're showing grass basically from beyond the gazebo to the garage.
Yes.
The photo is all pavers. So are you going to pull those up and install grass?
Yes, because when I got called in to take care of this situation, I didn't want landscaping to be an issue. So I told my clients that we will remove that pavers and provide grass behind there to comply with the rear yard landscaping.
Got it. Thanks.
Very good. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you to Mr. Reed and also to Ms. Chan for raising a couple of issues that didn't occur to me. One is when one looks at the site plan, of course, the gazebo's right abutting the fence, or just above the fence. And I do have a gazebo as well, and I know water runs right off unless I put in an eaves trough and divert water away, as well as the issue of the pavers in the back. I wonder if the applicant would be averse to conditions requiring both an eaves trough as well as to ensure that the pavers at the back are removed with and replaced with soft landscaping.
The only problem with the condition is that we would be encroaching onto the neighbor's property for the eaves trough, right? So I don't know if the building department will issue a permit once we're encroaching on neighboring property. But as far as the landscaping, yes, I totally agree with any condition you'd like to me add there.
Okay, thank you.
I believe the water, although there will be water, it will be minimum because there's four-sided slopes. So that's why we would talk to the neighbor and see what he would like us to do for him, right? So I don't know how we should handle that one, but because we have his support, I think he's on board with whatever issues may arise. And I do believe he has some planting beyond that fence.
Right. Okay. Ms. Chan?
I have the same, that's why I raised the problem. It's actually, it's not so simple. I do not think the neighbor knows the water and ice will shed into her property. And I do not think she will agree to that. But on the other hand, I don't think we can solve a building. I don't even know it's a building code, because if they put a gutter there, it will encroach onto over their property. So I'm not too sure how to solve that. But I just want to point that out. At least the neighbor will know, or the applicant will know, that they have an issue on
If
in the
there's an
hand. Yeah.
issue, we could always address it. Like we have planters on both sides of our side lot lines, and I believe they have some planting on the other side of the fence. So if it becomes an issue, we can resolve it with them.
Further questions, panel? Hearing none, let's take it into committee for a motion, unless someone has a comment first. Mr. Reid, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think that the variances requested are minor, and partly because the gazebo it's quite elevated, but it's also very open. So I think it fits in the context of these backyards, and it doesn't cause negative impacts, particularly because the neighbors have said so. They're in support of it. So I move approval of the variances, but I would tie it to the landscape plan to ensure that the rear of the yard is returned to soft landscaping.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? There is. Mr. Byatt. It is moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. Votes unanimous, and that motion is carried. The application is approved. Number 15 is 828 Salmon Avenue. Okay. And I'll just check first with the moderator. Moderator, we don't show any speakers in opposition, but we have one speaker in interest. Okay. Well, then let's go to the agent, please.
Hi, it's Cassandra Richardson. I'm the representative of the clients at 828 Salmon Avenue.
Very good. Okay, Cassandra, I'm going to ask you to, if you could, to give us a brief presentation on your application, and you can begin now, please.
Sure can. In this case, the client is looking to put on a rear two-story at obviously the rear of the property, and it's very much in conjunction with a lot of the work that's happening on most of the properties on this street. A lot of the properties on this street are doing this exact same thing, if not more so. We believe our minor variances are in check to what's happening in the area.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go to the first registered speaker standing by.
I'm an adjacent neighbor to the property. I have one concern that I'd like to follow up on.
Just a moment, please. We missed your name. I think you gave it, but we missed hearing it. So could you state your name again, please?
It's Matthew George.
Go ahead.
An adjacent neighbor. I have a question, as I couldn't tell. Can you please tell me the height of the deck that is being proposed? It's called a raised ground level deck, and there's concern about privacy if it is to be over a certain height for both 828 Salmon and for those adjacent neighbors. That would be great. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Matthew, we're going to go back to the agent to answer your question. Let's go back to the agent, please. Just let me check. Is Maria Calandina going to speak? No. Okay. Let's go back to the agent. Agent?
Yes. Well, you can see clearly here in the elevation that's being presented that the height of the raised deck at the rear is at 3 foot 3 3/4 inches above grade.
Okay, thank you. panel members, any questions for the... No, I'm not hearing any.
No.
Let's
No.
take the application then into committee for a motion. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, I think this is quite this a minor application, and what they're asking for is reasonable. But the FSI is increased, but I think that is probably quite standard now for any new homes or additions. So I will move for approval with no conditions here.
It is seconded by Mr. Byas. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please. The vote is unanimous. That motion carries. The application is approved. Thank you. Number 16 is 31 Stafford Street. And on 31 Stafford, the panel has before it those materials submitted by the applicant with the application, plus 2 photographs of the property received in January. Applicant, please join us by stating your name.
This is Patrick McAuliffe. I'm the applicant.
Very
the
good.
agent for the owner.
Okay. Patrick, just stand by for one moment. Moderator, is there someone standing by here to speak? There is, okay. So Patrick,
Yes.
you are the owner and the agent?
Oh, I'm just the agent.
You're the agent, okay. We would ask you then for a brief presentation on your proposal. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
There's not much to say. Once you look at the 2 pictures that I sent in, you can see that virtually every house south of here has the identical balcony. In fact, most of the units have 2 balconies on them.
Let's pull up those pictures. Okay.
That's basically all I can really have to say.
Okay. Could we go back to the first picture, please? So your property is similar to the other. These other balconies are the norm.
Right.
Okay, then. Let us then go to the speaker who is standing by in opposition.
Okay, I think it's Brent Merrill. I'm for B. Stafford. Is that who's on now?
Hello. Could you state your name, please?
It's Brent Merrill.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble making out your words. Would you mind stating your name again, please?
Okay, I'll try again. It's Brent, B-R-E-N-T, Merrill, M-E-R-R-I-L-L.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to let you know, you're going to have to speak slowly because for some reason your voice is a bit kind of muted and as if you were... so it's just hard to make out the words. So go slowly, please. Your concern about the application, you have 5 minutes to address the panel.
Okay. First of all, we may be on here as concerned, but we are in support of the application. We did want to point out that the photos that are being shown are only pictures to the north of that balcony. As you noticed, I didn't see any pictures to the south. Our property is directly to the south, and there is no balcony on our property currently. But we do intend to file an application to put a balcony similar to this application on our property. We thought the owner should know that. I guess the second question is, I see the balcony's already in existence, right? So this is an application to refurbish the balcony because the balcony's already there.
Let's put that question to the applicant. Okay, thank you very much. Do you have anything further you wish to say?
No, I have nothing further to say. other than hopefully the owner will agree to support our application since we're supporting theirs.
Okay, please, if you wouldn't mind, repeat that what you just said last. Your last comment, I couldn't make it out.
I just wanted to comment that hopefully when it comes time for us to submit a similar application, the owner at 31 will support ours like we are supporting theirs.
Okay, got it. Let's go back with your question about whether this is a refurb or what it is. To the applicant. Applicant?
Yes. This is as a result of an order to comply.
So, okay, it's an existing condition then.
It's an
And-
existing, but it's like a 15-year-old existing condition that somebody finally just decided to complain about it.
Okay. Panel members, questions for the applicant? Mr. Byke, go ahead.
Just a question for the committee as well, perhaps. Should the purpose of the application then be altered to reflect that it's an existing? Well, it does actually say that. Sorry, I apologize. It's to alter the existing two-story semi-detached. Yeah, okay. But then it mentions it's by constructing a rear second floor balcony. It almost sounds as if the balcony didn't exist. So my question, I suppose, stands: should the purpose of the application be altered?
Yes, I think it should. I think you're right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can change the wording to read to permit the construction of a rear second floor balcony.
Okay. Okay, panel, there's a suggestion from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. Any further questions of the applicant or further comments? Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no problem. Actually, the opposition is also wanting to do the similar things. So I think I can approve I move for approval with no conditions here, with the amended purpose clause. Yeah.
Okay, very good. And I see Mr. Reed seconding that. So it is moved and seconded to approve the amended application. It has an amended purpose clause. Those in favor, please show of hands. That vote is unanimous. And it carries the motion. The application is so approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 17. Number 17 and number 20 are closely related. They are for 122 Simpson Avenue and 124 Simpson Avenue. So I'm going to suggest here, panel, that we deal with these two kind of jointly as we did with the ones earlier on the agenda that were two halves of a semi. So let's have the agent for 122 Simpson, number 17, standing by, and I'm just going to read the materials that we have here on the application. Before the committee are the following: submitted materials, revised plans, revised zoning notice dated February 1, arborist report, list of comparable floor space index approvals. There is comment from city planning, and there is support from, in the form of 24 form letters from Simpson Avenue, Howland Avenue, and Victor Avenue. There is correspondence also in opposition from 126 Simpson, which would appear to be a next door property. So that's 17. On number 20, The materials before the panel are those submitted at application time, revised zoning notice, cover letter from the applicants received February 1, arborist report, list of comparable floor space index approvals, and here we have 27 form letters in support from Simpson, Howland, Logan Avenue, and Victor Avenue. And in opposition, we do have written correspondence, once again, from 126 Simpson Avenue, Susan Williamson. Okay, then, let's go to the agent for number 17.
Hi, this is Stephen LeBlanc.
Good day to you. Now, just for clarity, are you also speaking for number 112 for yes, you are. You're also speaking for the other half of the semi 124.
Correct. That's
good.
Correct.
Okay. So, that being the case, and in that we do have registered speakers in opposition, you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead and give the panel, if you could, a sense of the overall project, including the two sides of the semi.
Both applicants are seeking permission to construct a third-story addition above the existing two-story house. For number 20 at 124 Simpson, there's also a 7-foot deep, 2.1 meter deep, two-story rear addition. At number 122 Simpson, there's a rear garage which needs no minor variances. And both properties are proposing to build main floor decks. There's no minor variance at 122. There's a minor variance at the west side for the main floor deck at 124 Simpson. Now, the proposed floor space is very much in keeping with the character of the existing neighborhood. On this block, number 153 Simpson is 1.29 times FSI, and 146 Simpson is 1.23 times. And in the nearby blocks at 2 Tiverton, 1.81, 141 First, 1.63, and there's a whole list of additional properties in the vicinity that have FSIs from 1.24 up to 1.81. Now, the two variances that we need for number 122 are for the FSI and also for the height of the west side wall. Now, the reason we're not able to meet the zoning requirements for the height of the main side wall is because of the narrowness of the lot and the closeness of the west side wall to the west side property line. There's only 1.13 meters, which is 5 1/4 inches between the existing west side wall and the existing west property line, which faces the laneway. So it's not possible for us to build the west wall as a mansard, for example. In order to balance out this zoning requirement, we're proposing to use a different material for the cladding of the third floor to reduce the visual impact of the proposed addition. The sidewall of the third floor will be made with clapboard siding, and the existing lower part, the existing two-story part of the west wall is brick. So even though the wall is higher than the bylaw allows, the change in materials will reduce the visual impact of the addition. And once again, I just want to emphasize, it's really difficult on a narrow property such as this to actually meet that particular sidewall requirement. Now, at 124, the third floor addition is almost the mirror image. The rear addition at the back is intended to provide a vestibule space from the parking. Right now, the parking is off a rear lane to the north. And so when the homeowners come and go, they normally come and go through the back. And there's an existing powder room at the back. So the vestibule will serve the powder room and the main floor kitchen as an entranceway from the rear, which will likely be the main entrance to the house. There's also on 124, there's a side yard setback variance for the deck alone. There's no corresponding requirement at 122, and that's just a discrepancy between the interpretations of the different plans examiners. So for 124, the plans examiner said that the deck is supposed to be set back 0.45 meters from the west lot line, which is the lot line with the common wall. And the homeowners at 122 Simpson are perfectly okay with this. There's going to be a 1.8 meter tall privacy screen between the two decks on either side of this semi-detached property.
I shall ask you I'll ask you to make your final comment now, please.
We have support from planning, and it's been submitted. The planner has stated in writing that he believes that the proposal meets the 4 tests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, let's go to the first speaker standing by in opposition.
I'm the owner of 126 Simpson Avenue, which, as you can see, is immediately next door and adjacent to the east of 122.
Permit me to interrupt you.
124.
Just a moment, please. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Somehow we just missed the first couple of seconds of your speaking. So if you wouldn't mind, please state your name and address once again.
Yes, of course. My name is Susan Williamson, and I'm the owner of 126 Simpson, which, as you can see, is immediately
to
the east and adjacent. Thank you.
You have 5 minutes. Go ahead with your comments, please.
Thank you. I have a clearer picture now about the plan for number 122, and I've seen that they have revised their plan submitted late last week from 4 variances to 2. FSI and height, as discussed. I guess my concern is about FSI, but if doubling the FSI of within a bylaw is not an issue, then we won't spend any time on that. I guess my question is, has Mr. LeBlanc given consideration to access to the rear laneway, the west laneway to number 122, which is the access to the laneway where we all have our parking and our spaces? So that's my one consideration with 122. For number 124, I am immediately impacted by this plan on multiple levels, and all 4 of their variances, which I don't consider minor.
Tell us the impact it's going to have on you. That's what we need to understand.
Thank you. As Mr. LeBlanc says, it's a very narrow property. I've submitted photos of the shared common space between our 2 homes.
Let's see if we can pull those up. Just hold on for a moment while we pull those photos up. Okay, can we go back to the one okay, is that photo there that showed the narrow space between the 2 homes?
Yeah, that's the walkway that extends from...
Okay, hold it there. Yeah, that's a good shot. Is that's your submission, is it?
Yes, and there are some additional photos if you scroll further down, sir.
Okay. Okay, that one when you were out there, that's a good one to leave it on for a minute to give us shows the 2 houses standing side by side. Can we go back a little bit to the 2 houses, the front elevations? Keep going down slowly until we get to that shot. There was a shot there of the two front elevations of the houses. It's coming up. There we are. Hold it there. Just leave it there, please. Okay, go ahead, Susan. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. My main concerns are four. Number one, obviously mass build height FSI. Number two, light, privacy, and views. As you can see, they're limited at best. The shots that I've submitted show you the view from my windows, both on all levels, looking to the rest of my home. Number three, very large concern with building maintenance and access between these two houses. And my understanding, if I'm reading the plans correctly, is they're bumping out towards me to the east in that shared space, which you can see in the photos. Not only have we had masonry issues, maintenance issues, I've asked historically if the neighbors at 124 would be interested in redoing masonry between our homes. Their answer was not interested. I went ahead with masonry repairs to the shared walkway, both extending to Simpson Avenue and in between our homes. So that's been repaired by me, a cost by me. But I'm concerned about maintenance, access, safety. Clearly, you can see in the photos there's an issue of garbage storage, as in there is none. We have a bad pest problem in between our homes and in our rear back gardens, which, I've submitted photos for. It's very tight. We can't even get recycling bins through that space. And if I stand in between the homes, I can literally touch both of our homes with both of my hands. So my concern is with the narrow properties and foundation issues, potential drainage issues, which there have been historically. My question is, both plans for 122 and 124 represent a considerable and significant amount of work for the footprint. Is the plan viable? Are these four variances in fact minor? They're bending the bylaws, but the reality is, how is this going to affect the land that we live on? So, I have concerns for all four variances. I have only verbal support from my neighbors. I understand the letters that have been submitted would not be impacted to the same degree that 126 would be, or the neighbors that to the north of us that share our laneway, and those are the neighbors on Victor.
I'll ask you for your final comment now, please.
Okay. I'm just concerned, as I mentioned, with the variances and the deeper issues with construction and what this might do to the shared ground that we're on.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now, moderator, first of all, panel, questions for this speaker? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to, I understand there's one more speaker. Let's have that speaker join us, please.
I'm Marlene Morris, and I live at 118 Simpson, which is the dwelling immediately to the west of 122 and 124.
Okay, so there's no 120. You are the next door neighbor.
Yeah, 120 and 118 are also semi-detached.
Oh, there. Okay, now I see. Okay.
The house.
Yes.
Right there.
Go ahead.
Now,
You have 5 minutes.
That's a good plan to start with, because if you look at that, we have a very small backyard, and because it's a small footprint based on the way these are two very different homes in Riverdale than most of these Victorian homes like 122 and 124. So if you look at that picture there, you can see the backyard of not only 118 and 120, but the home on the corner of Howland. They're identical. So what I'm concerned about is the building of the third floor, because if you go to the plans, of the third floor, you can see that on the side facing the west, the exterior, directly, right there, directly, all of that large window at the top and that window now on the second floor directly face the backyards and the properties on Howland as well. So it's a privacy issue for me, not only for the windows, but the deck. And raising it up, I would have a tendency to agree with the previous speaker. I'm a little confused on how this could be viewed as a minor variance, given the numbers that I saw on the minor variance or the public hearing notice that was sent to me, which are slightly different than what was posted for this meeting by you folks. So I'm not
Tell
sure
us
how to
about the
rationalize
impact
the
on it. Tell us
differences
the
between
impact
them.
that this would have on you.
What's that?
To tell us about the impact. If this was built as proposed, what would the impact be on your enjoyment of your property?
They're right above our backyard. Like literally. There's no privacy for the deck or those large windows on the top, not to mention the height variances that are listed in the material that was sent to me are huge. They're not minor. That's a significant third floor. Now, I've lived in the neighborhood for 35 years and I've seen a lot of work come and go. I would also echo the concerns of the previous speaker in that I've personally witnessed, I don't know if when you get to the permitting of something like this, how they're going to address the foundation issue. This is a 140-year-old home. And the foundations that were put in over the years may not support this kind of a structure or this kind of a plan, having done some building myself. So I'll leave that to the permitting, I suppose. But as far as this committee goes, I'm not sure how you take that into effect or how you consider that as a part of your approval.
Okay, well.
So I sort of object to the third floor, the way it's going over my property with no privacy. I would prefer to see a screen on the deck on the top floor, shading it from the people to the immediate west for the same reason you spoke about to the east.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how to resolve that. Normally I wouldn't have concerned myself with this until I saw the way they were doing the height and that third floor windows.
Are those the windows that we're seeing in this elevation?
The large window on the top floor,
Okay.
right? They don't exist now. All that exists there right now is that small window on the main floor, which is below fence line.
Okay.
And the small window on the middle floor is so far over that it's impacting the side of 120. So you're about to erect almost an apartment block looking event on the west side of 122.
Right. And how does your house compare in height to this house? Your property?
Just to the second floor.
Okay.
This is a Victorian home, so if you look at the gable end on the front at the top floor, that's at the roof line. See? It's a little deceiving in the picture, but so there is no livable space other than that small space on that gable end. I knew previous owners to here. I've been in the home through several renovations. And I think that erecting that third floor without some consideration for the privacy of the western neighbors is an issue. I spoke to my neighbor at...
Thank you very much. I've let you have some extra time here, panel members. Are there questions for this speaker? Okay. Let's go back then to the applicant or the agent who now has an opportunity to comment on both the speakers that have spoken. And he can comment in rebuttal. Let's see what he has to say. Going back now to the applicant, please.
I just want to point out to the committee that there's no variance requirement for height. That was eliminated by a change in the zoning bylaw that occurred after the application was made. So for 122, there are only two minor variances, one for FSI and one for the height of the main side wall facing west. And for 124, there's a third variance for the setback of the west side of the deck. The proposed addition at 122 Simpson is well separated from 118 Simpson. There's a laneway immediately to the west of 122 Simpson, which separates the subject property from 118. And there's an intervening property in between 118 and 122, as well as that public lane. If the committee would prefer that the applicant for 122 erect a privacy screen at the west side of the third floor deck, they would be willing to do that. That deck in particular is a building code requirement for fire exiting, so we have to have a deck somewhere on the third floor of this three-story proposal. With regard to 122 Simpson, the neighbor at 126 spoke about the shared walkway. The shared walkway actually ends 38 feet from the front property line, which is where, so the shared walkway is only the narrow part of the walkway between the two houses. So the exterior use of the space north of that narrow walkway, it's the neighbor at 126 doesn't have any interest in that particular part of it because it's not a right of way, it's not a shared walkway. And the current homeowners use that space for garbage storage because it's the least visually accessible part of the property. And they normally maintain that storage space. With regard to the use of the laneway, the garage doesn't need any minor variances. And it's also set back 1 meter from all of the boundary lines adjacent to the lane. That's what the zoning bylaw standard is, and we meet that particular standard. So I don't think there should be any concerns about the use of the public lane or the buildability of this project. The homeowner at 126 Simpson already has a third floor addition with a third floor rear deck. And she was able to execute that project without any difficulty. And there's no reason to think that the homeowners at 124 and 122 Simpson can't also build. The depth of the backyard is roughly 12 meters. So there's plenty of room for staging of the construction. And the homeowners plan to hire the same contractor to do both projects. So the staging area will be a common staging area for the entire undertaking. Now, the west wall of 126 does not have any windows. The windows at 126 face north. So there's no specific negative impact from light and shadow on those windows because those windows already face north and they don't receive any direct sunlight. And I think that's all I would like to add.
Let's see if the panel has any questions for you. Panel members, questions for the agent? I am not hearing any. So, if there are no further questions for the agent, let's take the application into committee. We'll be moving toward a motion. There may be some comments in advance of that. So we'll now go into committee, please, to discuss these two applications. Any thoughts, panel? Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Byatt.
I can hear you.
I'm sorry about that. I was just wondering if these two applications could be separated in one sense. And the reason for my thinking is, pardon me, 122 Simpson, I have concerns about it separate from 124, and that is, for example, the person in opposition who I believe resides at 120 talked about the very large windows that are going to be placed in the third floor extension that directly overlook her rear yard, because her property is actually quite a small one with a very shallow backyard. So her issues of privacy, I believe, are somewhat different to that of 124. So I'm wondering if we should perhaps look at these two applications separately. I'm not sure what my colleagues think.
I think we shall be taking separate votes on them, and those votes can reflect individual concerns that apply to the individual application. No question.
Okay. So in that case, just a comment that I'd like to make. I think the lady in opposition at 120 made some very good, valid points about that third floor extension. Despite the fact that there's a laneway in between, these are massive windows. They're almost full wall windows that will overlook her property completely. I am definitely not in favor of that impact on her. So it's one that I would not be in favor of this particular application for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts, Ms. Chan? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm looking at the same issue, but if you look at the Google map, the laneway and also the location of these proposed windows, which are set back 1.44 meter from the wall of the existing wall, means there also is setback from the property line, and there's a laneway. And if you look at the laneway, I'm not too sure this window can actually overlook the backyard because they do not line up. Unless you really want to go and take a peek at someone else's backyard, but I'm not too sure. I assume they also have blinds and all that too, right, themselves. So, because it doesn't prove, in drawings, it seems that these are large windows and facing south. But in reality, I do not see the sight line that will have really violating the privacy. You look at how it does not line up. The 120 or is it 120? The backyard is quite far back. I just don't have the evidence. Maybe the applicant can explain that to me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reid, any thoughts?
Sure. Just in general, I think these are both fine projects. But I think the question about the windows is a fair one. But none of the variances being requested are related to the depth, right, and the location of that window. I'm seeing that, and I'm like Yim. I think that privacy is a two-way street. I think, people inside don't want to be seen as people in their backyards don't want to be seen. So I think that's just a social kind of network that we're in. But I would support the screening for 120. I would support the screening on the west side of the balcony. I think that would go.
You mentioned 120. You mean one?
Sorry, 122. Pardon me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be one thing. But I'm support. Are we just talking solely about 122 right now?
We're talking about
in general
both.
comment.
We're going to do separate votes, and individual things can be reflected. But we're talking about both applications.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. So yeah, I think both of them do reflect, like there's similar developments to at 126, the neighbor who was objecting in terms of both length and having balconies on the rear with a second story extension. So I think they both fit into the pattern of development in the area and are fully reasonable.
Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, in terms of what they are asking for, in terms of the variances, I think that the development do fit. And also, I think that the third floor is really, the bulk of it is at the back, and it doesn't affect the street side of it. And there's no reason to think that this development do not meet the 4 tests, except if I don't know whether we can work to have a condition so that the treatment of the west side windows.
Well, then,
I don't know whether we should or we can to increase the privacy.
let's focus then now on our actual moving toward motions here, because we have 2 motions upcoming. Let's go now to a motion on 122 and tailor that motion to the specific concerns that members may have. Go ahead, Ms. Chan.
Okay, then maybe I'll try to have a motion. I support the number 22 in terms of the development data. And I also support the privacy screen on the rear fifth floor balcony on the west side, the 1.5 meter above the deck. And with the window treatment, I do not know whether we can put a condition so that they can work with the neighbor to mitigate the privacy impact. Can we do that, Chairman?
We don't have a simple way of enforcing that or following up to ensure it's done. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's not enforceable, right? Okay.
Mr.
So
Byatt?
I will not have that as condition then. Yeah.
Mr. Byatt?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just as a question to you and my colleagues, is this a case where we could speak to the applicant again in terms of what treatment could be applied to the windows so that the windows, could they be frosted glass, for example, and put that in as a condition of approval?
I think we could back out of committee now for a moment and talk to the applicant. Let's see what we can work out there. So, applicant, we're asking you to join us again.
I propose that there be a condition on the decision where the west side windows would be made out of frosted glass from 1.5 meters above the 3rd floor level down towards the floor. So clear glass above 1.5 meters, and below 1.5 meters, it would be frosted glass. I also support the proposed condition for the privacy screen at the west edge of the 3rd floor deck.
I'm just thinking about your proposal, and what that means is that if I'm down in the backyard, I can't look up into your bedroom, but you can still look over the top of the frosted glass and look down at me in my backyard.
No, everybody's eye level is below 1.5 meters, so you can't see over.
Okay.
Right, like if you're 5'9", your eyes are less than 1.5 meters above the floor.
Okay.
So you can't actually look down into a garden.
Good point. Okay. Panel members,
Yes.
there's a thought. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for the applicant while we're out of committee? No. Okay, applicant, we're going back into committee now. We're on 122.
Yeah, still the same motion, but adding that 1.5 frosted part of the west side of the floor windows. I think that if you really want to look at someone's backyard, you can with a telescope or something. I'm not too concerned with that, but yeah,
Okay, but
that's my motion.
let's see if staff have captured that now. So staff have captured that idea. So there is the essence of a motion. Does that motion have a second? It is seconded, Mr. Reid. So it is moved and seconded with respect to application number 17, 122. Simpson, to approve. Those in favor, please, show of hands. That vote is unanimous to carry that motion. Thank you. Panel now turns its attention to application number 20, 124, Simpson. And on this one, panel, looking for a motion that can we can tailor if you wish. Go ahead, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. For the similar reasons we discussed in for 122 Simpson, I would move a motion of approval subject to the east side of the third floor balcony be screened to 1.5 meters.
Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm, right now there's 5 variances that are before committee, and I just want to put it on public record that in fact, there will only be 3 variances, which means that variance number 1 and variance number 5 get deleted, and that's for the height of the dwelling.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so we are dealing now with an amended application panel, and very important that numbers 3 and 5.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. It would be variances number 1 and variance number 5, and those both relate to the dwelling height of 10.5 meters.
Thank you very much.
Based on the revised zoning review that was submitted by the applicant.
Okay.
And if we just want to come out of committee and maybe get the applicant on the line just to confirm that, we may also want to
I think
do
it's
that.
important to do that. Okay, we are coming out of committee again for a moment to return to the applicant. And
I
applicant, as
concur
you-
with the staff about the list of variances.
Very good, thank you. We return to committee and formulating this motion. Okay, so the motion, there is a motion which now relates to the amended application. Does that motion still have a second? Does it have a second? That was Mr. Reed's motion. Maybe we'd better backtrack, Mr. Reed, and if you wouldn't mind, please.
For sure. I'm happy to move a motion of approval for the application as amended. So that's with variances 1 and 5 being deleted, subject to the condition that the east side of the rear third floor balcony have privacy screening to 1.5 meters.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? That is seconded, Mr. Byatt. So with respect to application number 20, 124, Simpson, there is a motion moved and seconded to approve the amended application. All those in favor, please, show of hands. That vote is unanimous to carry the motion, and that application is approved. Okay, now, at this stage, we just have 2 applications to go. One of them does have a speaker in opposition, so we're just going to take a 5-minute break. We've been going now about 2.5 hours, so just a 5-minute break, then we'll come back and tidy up the remaining part of this morning's agenda. So 5 minutes, we shall resume at 12:07. Thank you. Committee now in recess. By the way, Jordan, this is driving me nuts. I have to look up here. It's hurting my neck, but it just, using that camera, it just doesn't work to see what you can do. Sure.
Something about
Wait, it says HDMI 3. Is there like more than one HDMI slot?
It should be HDMI 1.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so
the-
I think it's just, how do we,
I think.
no, sorry. How can we, this is the menu, right? So, picture, sound,
really just want to monitor picture settings. I mean, on my TV, we hit a few buttons, change it. It's about input.
Yeah.
Something input related.
System support.
Oh, no, this is just for the power. That is the deep plug. Sorry, I think I was trying to grab it. Two on this console.
It's not giving us that,
Can you connect
source.
Here, try
Here,
that.
HDMI.
Screen me? Oh, it lagged, right? Can, isn't this volume? I think that's volume.
Yeah, we don't need the volume on that. I gotta get back to where we
The
were.
menu.
Settings?
We had
Screen
it, I think.
mirror
You had it for a minute.
settings because it's not compatible.
No. This is screen mirror now. You have to exit from this.
I know, it's not allowing me to exit.
Yeah, there's no other button, right?
I'm pressing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to press it like 5 times.
There.
Thanks, Amina. We'll make note of that.
So because it's in HDMI 1, then we just have to make sure. There.
Yep.
So that's right. All right.
Thanks, Amina. Wow, okay.
So yeah.
Make note of that. Yeah, I'll make note of that. It's good. HDMI 1. Let me write that. All right, thanks, Sabrina.
We got it fixed.
Very much, thank you. All right. We resume. And we resume with consideration of item number 18, 184 Annette Street. On this application, the panel has before it those materials submitted with the application. There are 4 photographs of the property, and there is a planning rationale prepared by SGL Planning and Design, received February 1st. There is correspondence in interest or concern from John Dixon at 279 High Park Avenue. And moderator, just to check with you, we do have one speaker standing by. Very good, okay. In opposition, all right. So let's go to the agent, please. Join us by stating your name.
Mr. Chair,
Good morning.
Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, agent for the owner, 184 Annette Street.
Good morning to you. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please go ahead.
Sure, gladly. This is a proposal for a 2-story laneway suite with a 2-car garage on the ground floor. There are no changes proposed to the existing dwelling, and the owners and their family occupy one of the units. If possible, if my planning rationale could be put up on screen, that'd be great. There are a couple images I'd like to reference there.
Take your
So
time.
the first image.
Let's just get it up. Okay, here we are.
That's great. Thank you. The first image is the existing dwelling. Again, no changes proposed. I'd like to bring up, there's a last-minute letter of support from 182 Annette that has just been submitted to staff literally moments ago, but the owner has been in discussions with this neighbor prior to today's meeting, but a letter of support has been submitted. There are no concerns from staff. No trees will be impacted. I'd be happy to address the letter of concern, but I'd like to speak to the variances. So the variance related to rear yard soft landscaping, variance number 1, is quite minor in nature. To bring it more into compliance would require removing a rear yard patio, which is amenity space for the ground floor residents, and it represents a deficiency of 15.8 square meters, or and actually, I'm sorry, 86.98 square meters are being provided, which is approximately 936 square feet of soft landscaping. Also, the rear driveway is existing, and there's a hard surface walkway proposed as well. So variance number 2, however, we don't actually think it's necessary, and I've been in contact with the zoning examiner about this. So this is a variance for requiring a minimum of 75% of the area between the ancillary building containing a laneway suite and the lot line abutting a lane, excluding a permitted driveway, must be for soft landscaping. And the way it's written up, we were providing 0 square meters and 0%. Now, I've looked at the bylaw, and the way it's actually written, it says the area between the ancillary building containing a laneway suite and the lot line abutting a lane, excluding a permitted driveway and a pedestrian walkway, which may have a maximum width of 1.5 meters, must be landscaping, of which a minimum of 75% must be soft landscaping. If you look at my planning rationale, the image on page 3, the area outlined in red is the area of the ancillary building that actually abuts the laneway. Now, on the left-hand side of that, which would be the west side, there is a walkway, and at the rear, that area is an existing driveway which will provide access to the 2-car garage in the ground floor of the proposed laneway suite. So after speaking with the zoning examiner and bringing this to their attention, they agree that this variance isn't required. However, out of an abundance of caution and without the benefit of an official zoning review, this close to the Committee of Adjustment hearing date, we think it's best to continue to request this variance. Once zoning looks it over, they've assured me that it isn't required, but if some small sliver of this area were later determined to count towards this calculation and an additional variance were triggered, it may mean another visit to the Committee of Adjustment and all the time and costs that come along with it. So we believe it's unnecessary and it can be removed at the building permit stage, but just to be on the safe side, we'd like to keep it in. We believe this proposal passes the 4 tests. It will create an additional dwelling unit, providing much needed new rental housing in a neighborhood that's highly accessible by transit and cycling infrastructure and in close proximity to shopping, schools, parks, other amenities. This will also provide a bit of eyes on the street, so to speak, for this laneway. This would be the first laneway suite on this little pocket of this neighborhood, but other sites nearby are suitable for this type of redevelopment, and I envision in the future more of these in a nice little neighborhood kind of popping up behind these homes here, and there's plenty of space to do it. The letter of concern which was submitted was mostly about construction issues and parking of vehicles. I have relayed that to our client, who's the designer, and they have of course shared it with the owner. Not really a matter for a committee, but I'm sure that a solution can be arrived at there so that neighbors aren't inconvenienced during the construction process. Beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and thanks for your time.
Okay, question, Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, your new driveway, is it new driveway? You're going to repave the surface?
Well, there is an existing driveway there. When I did my site visit, it was quite snowy, so I'm not exactly sure of the condition of the pavement underneath, but it may need to be repaved. I'm not entirely sure of that. But it is an existing driveway and parking area back there with a. I'm sorry,
just
go
want
ahead.
to know if you're going to, it's a new driveway repave, whether you will use permeable material. That's all. Yeah.
Well, it's a very small section of the lot that you can see at the rear. Again, I can't really answer that. I'm not sure if it needs to be repaved or what the plan is there. But it does provide access to the parking in the ancillary building.
Okay.
Let's go to the registered speaker now who is standing by to speak in opposition. Good morning.
Hello. Yes, this is Mark and Kristen Bachar. We're at 275 High Park Avenue, and we share the laneway with 184. In fact, our backyard and garage directly are right across the street from, or right across the laneway from where they're proposing. We have just two concerns, one for construction and one for afterwards. During construction, we share the same concern about just the impact. We do use that laneway significantly. Our garage, we have to reverse our cars into our garage, and we're in and out about 6 times a day. We have 2 young kids. So if there's any, the current owners have had a previous renovation on that same property, and there were laneway issues throughout that construction process. So I just want to note that if, I'm not necessarily in opposition, but they have to sort of address that, because I think all of us in the neighborhood share that same laneway, and it's only one way in and out. The impact after construction, our concern there would just be that if it's a 2-story, the windows that they're proposing, they actually don't look into the owner's yard, they actually look into our backyard. And again, we have 2 young children who are minors who are constantly playing in that backyard. And that's how it would impact sort of our enjoyment of our own property. There are no trees or anything to kind of obstruct their view directly into our backyard. And lastly, there's a utility pole that's right there on their property where they're proposing to construct. I'm not sure if that has to be moved or it's going to impact any of our services afterwards or even during construction. So those are our concerns.
Thank you very much. Panel members, questions for this speaker? I have a question for you. So the overlook concern you're expressing with respect to your to your backyard, that overlook is from which? Maybe we can put up the rear elevation, please, of the subject house.
We're
And,
directly west, yeah.
So that's the rear elevation, isn't it? Okay. So your concern, the overlook would be taking place from where?
The second floor.
The second
floor.
the second story there. And that's from the rear of this. That's the rear elevation? Or side? Oh, okay. What is the... That was the rear. Okay. So it'd be from the rear... Is this the elevation from which the overlook would be happening?
Yeah, the one that's facing west, the windows that face west.
Just touch it down a bit, please, so we can see the... There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. No questions, panel? We can then go back to the applicant who will have a chance to speak and comment in rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the neighbors' concerns. Again, some of the construction-related issues are things that can be discussed between the owner and their neighbors, and I've already forwarded those comments to them. Beyond that, views, these windows facing west, there are no variances related to these windows. They are permitted. I'm sure that the people who will eventually live there would also prefer not to have privacy issues. I assume they would use window coverings, as most of us do, but there are no variances related to these windows. There is a pole in the laneway, and I do not believe that it needs to be moved. It's visible on the site plan and the survey, and it is beside the laneway suite. I don't see why it would have to be removed.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the agent? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just one about the parking spaces in the garage, and specifically the one to the east. It looks like it's a tight squeeze to maneuver in and out around the garage that's existing to the north. Can you just comment on that, the accessibility of that space?
I agree with you, and I did notice that in my preparations as well. The owner lives in the home, and these parking spaces are for him and his family. He's aware that maneuvering into that eastern parking space may be difficult, particularly if you have another car parked in the western parking space. And he's aware of the inconvenience that it may pose on himself to move his one car out to get to the other, and so on. So we've definitely considered that, but this is the way to get 2 parking spaces into this structure, along with the covered bicycle parking that's there and a driveway. So he's aware that it may pose an inconvenience for him, but he lives there and he's willing to deal with it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, panel, if there are no further questions, then let's move into committee for moving to a motion or comments if anyone has comment first. And Mr. Reid, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think that this is a reasonable application, and the variances that are being requested are quite small, and the paving between the rear of the laneway suite and the laneway may not actually be required. I understand what the applicant's saying with that. So I do think this is defensible, and I wanted to commend the applicant that the built form structure, the remainder of the built form structure is complying with the bylaw, and I think that's there's obviously been some effort involved in that. So I'm happy to bring a motion for approval of the application with no conditions.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Byatt. It is moved and seconded, therefore, to approve the application. Those in favor, show of hands. That vote is unanimous. Motion carries and the application is approved. Panel moves along to the last item on this agenda, this morning's agenda, number 19, 125 Lisgar Street. On 125 Lisgar, the panel has before it materials submitted with the application, presentation materials from the agent, October 28, and February the 6th. And there is a staff report from Urban Forestry received February the 1st. So let's have the applicant join us, please, by stating your name.
It's Mike Gallia, agent on behalf of the owner of 125 LISGAR.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon. Okay. Panel members, presentation required. Questions for the applicant, the agent? Mr. Byatt, please. Mr. Byatt, unmute, please.
Sorry about that. Just a quick question, clarification. Variance number 6, is that an existing condition, soft landscaping?
Through the chair to the member, in a way it is an existing condition. We're not making any changes to the rear yard landscaping. We are building a side yard addition, which is consuming some of the rear yard landscape. However, that area is currently covered by concrete. So that being said, we feel that it's just a numbers game, really. In the end, in terms of soft landscaping, it's not changing. It's just changed the size of our rear yard landscaping area. As well, I'd like to bring up perhaps at this point the fact that there is a tree that falls into that area, the tree protection zone. It's a white cedar. On the neighboring property, we have not yet applied for the permit. We will gladly do so, the permit to injure that tree. However, I'm unsure of how much of the root system, it's a very young tree, would actually be underneath or on the neighbor's property, given that it tends to follow the drip line. The drip line does not extend beyond the property line, and that concrete actually does already interfere with the protection zone, as we will with the new addition.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any further questions? Anyone ready with a motion? Ms. Chan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can move for a motion for approval because I think the location of the property is very close. It's very central and dense area, and it's very close to Queen Street West. And I think it's a very good location to add a couple of residential units. And the variances they're asking for, I think that they are minor. And I'm in support of it and move for approval with the urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So therefore moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. All in favor, please. Show of hands. Motion is carried. Unanimous vote, and the application is so approved. So that completes this morning's agenda. The committee will now recess until 2 p.m., at which time we shall continue with item number 21 on today's agenda, which is 37 Beechwood. So committee is now in recess until 2 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you.